criminal law, there are two elements to every offense. Okay, you have mens rea and you have actus rea. Mens rea is the mental element. All right, so when I say someone is a murderer, that means they intended to kill. There are slightly different definitions in different places, but the point is you have to prove that subjective intention, not what you think I wanted to do. You have to prove what I actually wanted to do. So that kind of information is super important in figuring out that mental element, right? Because if it's just the actus rea, which is the action, the guilty action, all they did was beat him, right? So if they wanted to beat him, but they didn't want to kill him, that's not murder, it's manslaughter. Right, so there's an entirely different charge, different set of rules apply. What kind of sentence you're going to get? That's one important thing you want to take note of, which a lot of police officers get away with because we only talk about that 5 minutes. We don't talk about the hours in which they were patrolling, what the unit talks about, how the Scorpion unit operates, how do they look at all these threats. Okay, so that's one. And number two is the federal investigation. There are two major levels of government, especially in the US in this context. You have the state level and you have a federal level. So the federal government, obviously in this case where you are being charged with criminal offenses, the state is in charge of the prosecution. Okay, so that is the power of the state. The federal government can do things like audit or carry out criminal investigations for specific departments. Departments like the police department are under federal legislation. When we look at how the federal government checks on police departments, checking for whether or not there's excessive use of force. So how many incidents like this are common? Right? What is the department doing to prevent this? Right? So an internal audit is super important, something that the federal government can do. And the other thing is obviously to set some kind of federal regulation or at least some kind of federal guidance on what we expect police officers to be charged with if they don't turn on their body camera, right? Like basic stuff like that is not something that is currently being discussed because we are charging them for murder, but it should be a separate offense in the administrative hearing, which they are going to look into for why they didn't turn on their body cam to begin with. Having federal legislations that make the cost of doing this thing so much higher would make it a lot more effective.